Howdy, friends, and welcome to the StoryField. This is a podcast where we talk about business, faith, and life in general.
Okay, so here's the deal. We want you to be encouraged. We want you living in hope. This life we live is complex. It's hard at times. At the StoryField, you will find great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you. Our goal is that you leave encouraged, inspired, and excited to move forward in life. But before we get started, one thing though, if you're listening and you find yourself really hopeless right now, send us an email at hope@thestoryfield.com so we can pray for you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started.
Well, hey, StoryField. Please welcome Mike Lynn. Mike, man, thank you for making time today.
I'm so excited. You guys really appreciate just the ability to talk about my story on your podcast. So ready to open up the brain and give you everything I got.
Awesome. Well, man, I got a super serious question to start this off, if that's okay with you.
Light me up.
Have you ever worn cheese on your head for a football game?
So little known fact, if you're wearing a cheese head at Lambeau Field, number one, you're probably a rookie because
that's good to know.
The true vets that actually have season tickets, they know better not to wear a cheese head. Now, I appreciate those that wear a cheese head because it's probably their first time at Lambeau and they're super excited. And, I get why you do it. I've never done it. And one of the reasons why I don't do it is, first, it's uncomfortable. You're wearing this actually heavy, thing on your head, foam thing on your head. But the second is there's somebody sitting behind you. Yeah. You gotta look over this like tower above your head. And yeah, so I haven't actually worn a cheese head. Now I've tried one on, but I've never actually worn one to a game. That's just not something I would do.
I heard they're super heavy. Aren't they like 20 pounds or something like that?
So great observation. They are heavy, and it's actually saved somebody's life. Here's why.
Like a helmet.
Here's why. Yes. So there is this show, an air show in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It's called EAA. And EAA is an aviation museum, and they have an annual show, and all these planes flying from all over the world, like all over the place. Somebody was wearing a cheese head in their aircraft, and they crashed, and the cheese head saved their life. No joke.
Oh my goodness.
This is a real story. So please Google it. You will find it, and it does exist. And pretty much the most incredible thing. So as much as I want to tease about it, it did save someone's life.
Well, man, so Mike, thank you. So Mike is a Green Bay native, born and raised there. We're going to get into it, but he is a co-founder and the chief financial officer of pray.com. So we've got the privilege of having Matt on earlier. So, man, we're glad to have you, Mike. And for those who may have missed the first one, pray.com is the world's #1 app for daily prayer and faith content. That is so awesome. So you guys are about 6 years old and the highest grossing religious app in history. It has over 12 million downloads and the #1 podcast in the religion and spirituality category in Spotify. So you can download, and I love this, Mike, you can download over 5,000 pieces of original audio content. And you guys did this in 6 years-ish. And then, so that we need to get into that because you're the financial officer. So I have a lot of questions on those lenses from pray.com, but you made a huge move from Wisconsin to California and a big transition and, from a 13-year career in Merrill Lynch to start Pray. So we have to hear about that. And also you're a huge runner. You ran seven marathons.
That's right. Yeah. I actually did 3 in 1 year once. And I did one during COVID when you couldn't do a marathon. So I just did one for fun by myself.
You are a glutton for punishment, I think, then.
For fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we talked
about wait, real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
Man, I'm just intrigued because I don't get to hang out with Green Bay Packer fans that much. Would you take Bart Starr, Aaron Rodgers, or Brett Favre?
To win a Super Bowl. I'm assuming that's the question. Well, I think you got to go Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers.
You got to go Aaron Rodgers.
All right.
Yeah. He's just the records that he has set on efficiency
right
are so incredible that, as much as fun as Favre is, and the reality is Bart Starr has more rings, I'd still go Aaron. I still would. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, they just have that history of being kind of gritty QBs, and maybe it's the cold or the history of the Ice Bowl or whatever it is. So I just wanted to throw it out there before we get on to the story part. I wanted to finish the sports part.
Well,
and we'll probably bring back sports.
Let's not
anyway.
finish. Let's keep going. Sports
it won't. It'll come back.
Weird.
Well, take us back to your childhood, Mike. So you grew up in Green Bay, but take us. What was that like growing up there? Did you grow up in church? Kind of start us. We want to kind of run a little bit of a life story with you.
Cool.
Can you take us back to the start?
I can. Yep. Grew up in a town in Green Bay. It was called Bellevue. And it was one of those brand new neighborhoods that everyone had like their first house, and there was like fields, farmer fields around it. So this is like a new neighborhood in the Green Bay community. And my father worked at a paper mill. And so he's worked at this paper mill his whole life. So he started when he was 18 years old, and he retired, I think it's maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, but he was there for 49 years at one spot. So he's literally opened the same door to go to work his entire life.
I mean, that's mind blowing. That's mind blowing to our current, culture, and even our current, that's mind blowing. Wow.
It's incredible. And, he worked his way up throughout working there. So he started in the garage and working on semis. And he actually has a nice, permanent disfigurement on his thumb from like hitting a tack hammer, I think, or something on his thumb when he was working on a semi back when he was younger. But he worked his way up, in management, later on in his years, and actually into IT, which is interesting because, I'm kind of in the tech field myself. And he went to night school while he was working there too. So I remember as a kid actually being in a college class because he had to take a test. And we didn't have a babysitter. I think my mom was working at the time. So I'm sitting in the back of this random college class. I must have been 5 or 6 years old. And my dad's just don't say anything. And I was like, I got to take the test right now. And I can't leave you sit in the car. So you're sitting right here. But growing up Green Bay, what an incredible place to grow up. I don't know where you guys grew up, but small town. Green Bay is small town. And if you ever get a chance to go to Green Bay, really nice people, just really nice people. That's the number one thing I miss about Green Bay is just going back, and people just really actually care. They really do care. And so growing up in an environment where there's just really good people, you get that, it shapes you, right? And when I was growing up, I'm raised Catholic, so I'm confirmed Catholic. And, growing up, going to Catholic Mass, probably not as exciting as going to an evangelical church if you're a kid right now, where there's a rock band and there's TVs and all sorts of, different things to get you excited. I mean, there's snow in some of these, during Christmas time in some of these evangelical churches. So, by the way, I'd never walked into one until I started prayer.com. So I didn't even know what happened in those churches. But growing up Catholic, I kind of just, I knew it was important. My mom wanted us to go to church every single week. And my dad was definitely supportive and wanted to join in and was definitely supportive. And so, it was really great to walk into church and feel better when you walked out. You weren't sure why you did, but you're like, I feel like I'm a good person. I just did something that I know was good. And you walk out in a better mood. Everyone's happy. They're like, oh, can't wait to start whatever the rest of the Sunday is. And so I knew it was important. I really didn't understand all the traditions and what was actually taking place. Why am I taking this bread? What does this actually mean? Why can't I have this wine right now? Oh, it's alcohol. What's alcohol? And so growing up, it was kind of a little bit of a mystery of why it was so important. And I didn't really understand it until actually after college, and where I actually get to, you go back to Green Bay, and it was kind of like I was a CEO, church and Easter only person, where you go to Christmas and Easter only church person. Because I went to a very liberal school in Madison, and like people just walked away from church. Like nobody's talking about church. And I was like, oh, I guess that's not what you do when you go to college. I guess you don't go to church because no one's talking about it. I don't see anybody going. So maybe I have to stop that right now, which, is unfortunate, because I think my experience may have benefited from actually going on a regular basis. I think I would have been a better person. But I remember going afterwards, like really understanding what they were saying. I was like, this is actually what we're talking about here. Like, I understand what we're talking about. And so, growing up in Green Bay, really, faith was important. I didn't know how important what it was, but thank God my family did, and got me confirmed. And that really was the basis of why Pray.com was so important to me when it was brought to me, is because I had that background and I had that moral, setting in my life.
So did it feel like when you were in college and you didn't have the full understanding of when you were in, at the Catholic Church and all of this stuff, did you feel like you were missing something while you were in college? I mean, you just said you see these people who may have gone to church and then they're not going anywhere and it's not that popular. And I know in the South, there's like BSMs and all of these organizations that are like on campus hammering. And my dad was a professor at the University of Illinois, and he would say the same thing. They're just not as they're not as prevalent in the northern schools, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I went to one of the most liberal schools in the country, Madison in Wisconsin. It rivals Berkeley, to give you an idea how liberal. And Austin is a city, as you know, very liberal city.
Correct.
So when it's not around you, it's not being talked about in general sense in a social setting, you're wondering why it's not being talked about. Why don't people think this is important? And I knew that there was something off, right? I knew there was something off. And that's why I was like, why am I not going to church, and why aren't other people? It was definitely something that I knew was wrong.
Hey, y'all. I just want to make an observation. When I see someone going through a legal situation, it seems like there are way too many unknowns. Well, the Allen firm provides legal guidance so that you can make a great decision, come to a resolution, and be at peace. For more information about the Allen firm, visit allenlawfirm.com.
Man, Mike, you hit on I think a really important topic. But can you encourage some parents maybe who have kids who are about to leave or soon to leave or in college on your experience in college, looking back now from where you're at, what would have been nice for the college Mike who went to a super liberal school? What kind of tools would it have been nice to have, or what kind of encouragement, or what would you say to that parent who kind of, has the kid who was you, who grew up in a faith tradition and then went to a place where it's kind of like all targets on or on you or off you, or can you speak to that? That's a little bit of a confusing question, but hopefully you get what I'm saying.
I got you. One is, there's something it has to be authentic. Like, you can tell your kids to go to mass or participate in some life groups. They have to want to. So, you can't force anything onto someone that doesn't want it, even though you want that for them, and maybe they will find it. Most likely they will come back and find it, especially as life events happen, they'll come back to it. So one thing is, you can't push anything, because if they don't want it, there's nothing you can do about it. However, there are resources that are on-demand resources, And I don't know if you set this up because this is kind of what we do, but like the reality is, when you're going to college, your schedule is messed up. Your schedule is wild. And you just need to be able to grab something when you feel it. And usually it's your phone. And is there something on your phone that can get you through the day that you needed at one moment or another? And it could be a daily devotional. It could be a piece of scripture. It could be, some sort of sermon, something on a topic you need at that moment. And if you have it ready available, they'll use it.
And that's what you guys do, right? I mean, so talk about that.
That's what we do at pray.com. And our platform is free. It is 100% free. So anyone can use it. We do have premium content that we will charge for, but the majority of our app is actually free. So find resources like that. And pray.com is one of them. So I would just encourage any parent that's out there, like, you can't force them to do anything. But what you can do is go, hey, by the way, there's this app. It's called pray.com. There are other apps out there. Download it, check it out. It's a resource if you want to use it. By the way, they know there's churches on campus. They understand that there's churches on campus. But I think the best tool you can give somebody is they're already on their phone. And why not have a resource they could click on and get a push notification or get an email? It's like, hey, just at the right time that they need it, it'll be there. And
yeah, you guys are making that so easy and so helpful. And I bet you're getting a ton of stories. You hear a lot of feedback.
So in making sure I was ready for this call with you guys, we have hundreds of thousands of testimonials that people use our app. And I just spoke at the Wynn Hotel for a keynote speech with my business partner, Steve, a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, you know what? I haven't looked at the hundreds of thousands of reviews that we have. Like, let's just take a look at a few. And like, maybe there's a few that are interesting. And so I have just a couple I want to read you guys just to understand like what people say when they use our app. So here's one. This is from this year. And it says, this app helped me more than you will ever know. I was well on my way to death from drinking. I couldn't have stopped without Jesus, and this app was with me from the beginning. It helped introduce the Lord to my life. I have a long way to go, but God brought me to this app, and this app brought me to God. Thank you for the bottom of my heart.
Oh my goodness.
It's like, I'll never see that person. And they said that using this platform helped them stop drinking. Now, that's not what we built it for, right?
No, but God has the plans that you guys are. I mean, that has got to feel so good to be working in something, because I know it's work, and I want to get into that. But to work in something with that kind of feedback, that's incredible.
It's I had no idea when we started this company I would that type of, like, holy cow, like actually having a real impact on someone's life like that. And every single day in our company, every single day, we read a testimonial from somebody. That's the first thing we do. And by the way, the entire company gets on a Zoom call. And the first thing we do every single morning, the first thing is we read a testimonial from someone that's used our app, that use our app, because it's that important to see the impact of everyone's day. Because it is, these are long days, and we have people all over the world, and they have to recognize that what they're doing is impacting real people.
Oh yeah, you're saving lives.
It's powerful. If you need motivation, you go and look at the app store and you read a review and you go, got it. I'll hammer this thing out an extra hour, no problem.
Oh, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. So you went to college in Madison, and then I want to talk about so was it during college that your mother and your father ended up divorcing?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that and then transition us to how'd you get to California?
Yeah, no problem. So I think everybody's greatest fear is having their parents, get divorced. I don't know if that's happened with you guys or not, in terms of your families, but I was fortunate that I was shielded from the last few years of it because I was in college, far away from the day-to-day of what was taking place. And it was kind of out of the blue in my head because I just was totally focused on school, and I just got a phone call. It's like, hey, this is the end. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? And, and you love both sides so much. And luckily for me, I was an adult at the time. So, mentally I could handle it. But during that event, it was very difficult. It was very difficult to be that far away and know that this, my my dad's moving out of the house, and assets are separating, and things are happening in a very, permanent way. And I'm not there to see it. And I almost thank God I wasn't, because I didn't want to have the mental scars from seeing it. But, that divorce actually changed my life. Of course, mentally, but more of what happened to my mom, actually, when there's a divorce, there's a separation of assets. There's a thing called a divorce decree, which basically says, here are the things that need to happen on both sides. And, we didn't come from a lot of money. My mom was a homemaker. She did odd jobs. She, drove school bus as a parent randomly. She would, work as a substitute teacher. And my dad, again, paper mill. So we weren't rolling in cash. And so whatever was there was being separated in half. And my mom didn't know how to run money. That's not her background. And we didn't have that much, to save and to be invested in. But she went to an advisor, a financial advisor, and the guy swindled her out of a bunch of money.
Oh my gosh. It's so devastating, even that happened. And even if, like you said, coming from a homemaker and not a high income, driving buses and teaching, there's nothing hardly anyways. And he took it all.
And well, here's the worst part. The worst part is the person was supposed to be a professional.
Oh my gosh. And
you go to those people because you're like, here, I don't know what to do. You're smart. And my mom is the most trusting person on the planet. She just didn't deserve anything like that. And I knew right then and there, I was like, that's it. I cannot let that happen to her again. I cannot let that happen to any of my family. I cannot let that happen to my friends. Just because I didn't grow with money doesn't mean I don't have to know money. And I had planned on being a marketing major in college. I thought that was the path for my life. And after that happened, I was like, that's it. I'm changing my major to finance. I'm going to learn so much about money. And I'm going to make sure that never happens to my mom ever again. And that was my path for the rest of my life, was I'm going to be the numbers guy. I'm going to be the finance guy. And that's how I got into 13 years at Merrill Lynch and ultimately moving to California.
That's unbelievable too. And especially just the God factor in that. Using that terrible situation, and it redirected your whole path in life.
And that's happened many times in my life. I thought the word was coincidence. It's not. It's providential. I didn't even know that term, by the way. But that was supposed to happen. And by the way, just so you guys know, my mom's 100% taken care of. She's in a great spot. And so the rebound was quick. We took care, we figured it out. She's in a good spot. So providentially, it was bad for us, but she's good now and we're strong. But that continues to happen where we're, my life and my family and, people that we work with, we're just pushed in these directions, and it's just, you can't believe that it's being done this way for us.
So in college, you graduated, you went and got your master's. Was that the move from Wisconsin to California?
Yes.
What was that like? That is
wild.
That's like a different country. I'm assuming compared to.
Oh, it was wild. I had never visited campus at USC. That's where I went and got my MBA. The reason I went to USC, I just went online and looked up what is the number one entrepreneurship programs in the country. And I just who's got the best ones? And I realized I had to go part-time because I just could not afford to go for full-time. I was like, I got to go part-time because I have to work. And USC was number 2 at the time, their part-time entrepreneurship program. I'm like, great, I'm going to go to USC entrepreneurship program. Oh, by the way, they're this awesome like football school. So like even better, like how sweet is that? And I remember getting the call. I had left Wrigley Field. I was in Chicago at a Wrigley Field game. I just left. I'm like walking to the car and I get this call from USC and they're like, hey, are you really going to move to Los Angeles? Like, we're just calling to make sure because we're going to give you a spot. Like, don't mess with us. You actually coming out here? I'm like, yes, I will move. I'm telling you, I'm going to move. And it was funny because on the drive over, there was an earthquake in LA. So I had left, Green Bay. I'm driving with all my stuff in my car to LA, and I'm in like Colorado or somewhere, and I hear that there's an earthquake in LA. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me!
What a mistake!
Like, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. And I had no place to live yet. I had not secured a location. Like, I was driving. I'm like, I'll figure it out when I get there. Like, that's
hang on. Was there anybody around you saying like, hey, did you not? Hey, where are you going to live? Where are you going to stay? What are you going to do for money? What?
I think I brushed those people off. I'm like,
okay,
I'm fine. Like, what's the worst that could happen? And
you're wired like a perfect entrepreneur. Then I mean,
I was like, we'll figure it out. And so on my way over, I was like looking up Craigslist ads, like on like the drive over. I'm like, I got to find a place to live by the time I get there. So I called somebody up, and I was like, hey, you got this place open? He's like, yeah, we just had an earthquake though. So like, just so you know. I'm like, whoa. Like, I hope you're okay, man. Like, is everything all right? He's like, yes, I am. And when I showed up there to like check out the place, he's like, by the way, there was 2 other people looking at this spot. But the fact that you asked if I was okay after this earthquake, like, I'm going to give it to you. And I was like,
I'll let that be a lesson for all of us.
For real.
I mean, just kindness.
Be nice to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
So you rented it and you got enrolled in school?
Lived in Brentwood. Which actually I was technically in West LA. So I'm in West LA, but I lived off of this street called Barrington, and I was probably only 5 blocks away from Bundy, if that street name rings a bell. And I would actually run by, where it went down with OJ and all that stuff. So it was very surreal. It was like this. I heard about this place, and now I'm like running by where it actually happened. Like, this is wild. But it was a total transformation in terms of just a massive city. And, it's not necessarily a cold place in terms of people. You just got to find the right people. And I just gravitated towards Midwest people. Like, you just knew as soon as you found them, you're like, oh, like, we're going to be buds. But the other thing about LA is I was working in Beverly Hills. I had transferred from my office in Wisconsin to the Beverly Hills office on Rodeo. So I'm literally like, the first day I'm like, okay, all of a sudden I'm in Beverly Hills working on Rodeo. And the team that I was working on, the guy had a Ferrari and a Rolls Royce. And I was like, I'm in like $1,000 car driving from Green Bay, and the guy that I'm working with has a Ferrari and a Rolls Royce. And I'm like,
did you have to upgrade your drip?
What's that?
Did you have to upgrade all your drip? Working on Rodeo. I mean,
I knew right away that, fake it till you make it in terms of your gear was very important.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, I immediately have to get a new suit, and like, I have to fit in right now.
So you were with Merrill Lynch at the time?
Yes.
Okay, so you were still working with them part-time, and then you're gonna start your master's program part-time.
Yeah, full-time Merrill Lynch, part-time USC.
Okay.
And you work New York hours. So markets open at 9:30 a.m., which means it's 6:30 a.m. in California. And you got to be in there before the market opens because somebody might have some trades. So I'm in the office at 6 a.m. every day. And going to school at night a couple times a week. And just to get to school, which is downtown, if you know anything about USC, by the way, it's right outside of some dangerous neighborhoods in LA. It takes an hour, 15 minutes just to drive 10 miles. 10 miles. So, another culture shock. I'm like, oh, 10 miles? Should get there quick. No.
How did you handle that as somebody growing up in kind of a farming community area too? Like, I mean, what was your headspace like? Were you still excited, or did it get
Super
to be
excited.
okay?
I was super excited because I didn't know anybody that was doing this stuff. Like nobody left Green Bay that I knew. Like very few people would leave Green Bay. And so I was the only person I knew. There's only one person I knew in LA when I moved to LA. And we had gone to college together. He was a roommate and he had gone out ahead of me, thank God. So at least I knew somebody I could go see every once in a while, but they still lived, 10 miles from me. So if I wanted to see them, it was at least an hour. And it was really exciting. It was more like, what could happen? Anything could happen. Like, this is fun.
Well, that says a lot about your like outlook on life. That's pretty cool. So you did that for 13 years?
So
I mean, obviously you graduated and
yeah. So I did finance for 13 years. It was a 3-year program. It was like 2.5 years program, MBA. So it was 2008 is when I moved to LA, and I graduated in 2011. So that was the year I graduated. And I had, it's kind of funny. You don't really go to college for entrepreneurship. Like that's not a thing you actually would do, because you're only going to learn so much. You actually have to be an entrepreneur. Like you actually have to try it. So I just knew, I was like, that is somehow something is going to come upon me. And that's going to be the new outset for my life. I knew I wasn't going to work at Merrill Lynch my whole life. Like that was not why I wanted to get my MBA. I wanted to get in entrepreneurship. So like I could learn how to become an entrepreneur.
I love that you were looking out for that too. That's really neat. Like you were looking for the thing that was going to come and you just knew it was going to happen.
I didn't have an idea. Like Mike and Josh, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was like, somebody has to have a good idea out here. I'm in an entrepreneurship school. Who's got the idea? Can I work with them? Like, is there anything cool that someone would even like me to work with them? And I just started to hang around all sorts of entrepreneurship events that were taking place in Santa Monica, California, which you guys heard of Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. So there was a point where Silicon Valley started expanding around the world, but it would be called something different in every different place. So in LA, it was called Silicon Beach. So basically all these tech entrepreneurs got started in Silicon Beach. So that's where Snapchat got started, right? This is like where Hulu and the big media platforms kind of got started.
You guys are surrounded by an exciting, like super high tech, fast paced world out there, huh?
That's right. Bird, you remember, the Bird scooters? Mm-hmm. That was started in the same office I was in.
Oh my goodness.
I know one of the engineers that was like a CTO of Bird. So the environment is perfect for this, right? Someone's got great ideas and I'm going to help them with it. And luckily for me, I'd gone to the right conference and I was just sitting in the back, just like I normally go to. And somebody was on stage and I was like, who is this guy? This guy is speaking like no one I've ever heard speak. And there's other people on stage, mind you, but everybody was asking that guy questions. And I was like, that guy, I don't know who he is, but I'm going to get to know him after this conference. And that also changed my path as soon as I met my business partner, Steve.
So that was Steve on the stage?
That was Steve Gattina.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And
talk about Providence.
He had went to USC. I had went to USC. Now I didn't know him at USC. We weren't in the same courses or anything. But the first time I actually met Steve, I was at the Rose Bowl. And I'm in the stadium and he was on the field winning a Rose Bowl with Coach Pete Carroll. So technically, that was the first time I met him. I got to see him watch him play football at USC, win a Rose Bowl. And, it's a funny story later because another one of our VP of content met him at the Rose Bowl as well, like an after party. And they were talking about content creation. And so now he works for Prey.com too. So Rose Bowl has a lot of apparently great outcomes.
It's amazing how go ahead, Mike.
This is all after UT went into the Rose Bowl and beat USC, right?
See,
he had to bring it up, man. I'm sorry.
This is a Vince Young sighting.
That seems unnecessary for this conversation, but you are you are correct.
You just made his week, unfortunately.
The good news is I was not a USC fan at the time, so
Correct.
like it didn't affect me. Was that 2006 or something?
2006. You missed it by a couple
2006.
years, but I just needed to throw that in there
Yeah.
just because.
Don't tell that to Steve. He would not appreciate that being brought up. But.
Steve, if you're listening, remember 2006
Yeah.
when
So at that conference, did you go and meet him or something?
Right after. As soon as
Okay, so you just went and connected with him.
right up to I go.
Oh, wow.
I was just like, hey man, like that was great. My name is Michael Lynn. I work for Merrill Lynch. I told him straight up, like, this is what I do. And there was two reasons I wanted to speak to him. One, he was a serial entrepreneur. So I knew he was successful. And when you're in financial management, you want to get those people as your clients. So I was like, I want to get this guy as a client, but I really want to get to know this guy as a friend. Like, he must know a lot of people and he's doing a lot of cool things. So that's how we got to know each other. And then, over the year that after I met him, I would just see his name randomly. I'd be like reading a newspaper and like, who is this guy? He's like right here. So I'd cut out the newspaper and I would send it to him in the mail. And he'd call me up, be like, oh yeah, thanks, man. Like, appreciate that article. You sent me on that article. And, then one day he invited me out to check out his new gig, which happened to be the CEO of an aerial production company at an airport. And they had like 20 helicopters, 20 sitting right outside his office. And his office was basically right on the tarmac. And
oh my goodness.
I was coming to check out his office one day. I'm like, this is wild. Like, this is your life? He's like, yeah, I just got started. Like, just sold the company and now I'm doing this. And the guy that brought me in, he's a friend of mine and he started the company, but he's like the best helicopter pilot ever to exist. And by the way, this is what we do. We film all of Hollywood's movies. Like, we do surveillance work for government. Oh, and by the way, we also do like medical air transport. So like patients in organs, hospital to hospital. So like, we're making movies, catching bad guys and saving people's lives. I go, that sounds like a cool gig. That sounds
You're like, do you have a job opening?
Yeah.
were you like, yeah.
Like, that's great. And that's really where things changed, when there was an event that happened in Steve's life and boom, pray.com gets started.
But then how did you get involved in that? Like, so how long between kind of you started to be friends with them, and then when did you guys say, hey, we're going to do this together?
Yeah, I think it was a couple of years. I don't know the exact moment that we like really considered ourselves friends and acquaintances, but his business partner, how it all started, his business partner died in a plane crash on September 11th, 2015. And that's how pray.com really got started. Is Steve wanted to get through his business partner dying, and he had never experienced like a tragic event ever in his life. And someone sent him a podcast from a pastor out in Texas. And he originally was just like, I don't want to listen to that. Like, I'm not into that. Like, I'm not like a Jesus freak. And somebody sent it to him. And he's like, dude, you're listening to all sorts of podcasts like Deepak Chopra, Oprah, Tony Robbins. Trust me, you'll like this. Give it a shot. And he listened to it and he said, whoa, this is literally the most incredible thing I've ever heard. I legitimately am feeling better about my life right now. And I'm going through the most tragic thing you can happen, is like a tragic loss of a human being. Like, this is incredible. How did I not even know this existed? Like, his job was actually being a media expert. He created Hollywood movies, and he didn't know about an audio podcast from a pastor. And I had called them up after this. And by the way, I actually went to the memorial service for his business partner. And I said to myself at this memorial service, because I watched Steve command, this process, which is there's like 300 people there and the family's there, and it's very sad. And Steve was just running it as if like it's the most important thing he's ever done in his life to make sure it goes off well. And I just remember sitting in the back going, if I ever get to work with that guy, like that's the kind of guy I want to work with. Someone that's stoic, knows how important this is so respectful, and is really shining a light on how great this person that had passed away is, and like really just exalting how what a wonderful life this guy had. And I was like, is there any way for me to work with that guy? I'd love to do it. And one day I called Steve up. This was the summer of 2016. So this is, 9 months or so after his business partner died. And I called him up to see what he was going to do next with his life, because he was transitioning out of the helicopter company. It was going to happen. And he said, come up to Westlake Village, come have some pizza with me. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with my life. And it was like a Wednesday night, summer 2016. And I said immediately when he told me to do that, I go, no way. No way. I'm not driving up to see you on a Wednesday night, dude. I work at 6:15 a.m. And it takes me an hour 15 just to get to you. Can you just tell me on the phone? He's like, no. I go, all right. And this is when God tapped me on the shoulder again. It's like, you are going. Like, stop.
Oh, yeah.
So that, and then when I went, the first thing he said was pray.com, the digital destination for faith. That was literally the first thing he said to me. It wasn't even like, hi. And as soon as he said it, I knew right away. I was like, oh my God. Like, what did you just say to me? Pray.com. Like, no way you have that domain name. I actually don't even believe you right now. But when you said the digital destination for faith, like immediately my Catholic brain that was sitting in the background going, hey, I'm important too, just turned on and go, oh my gosh, dude, I'm Catholic. You're talking about something that matters to me. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so we sat there that night eating pizza. 3 hours later, closing down this pizza spot. By the way, it's called Stonehouse in Westlake Village. It's incredible pizza. And we were just coming up with all the ways we were going to make pray.com the digital destination for faith during that time. And I told him that night, I go, listen, I'm going to leave my 13-year career, all my clients, all my licenses, all my designations, everything I've built my entire life, which is basically an annuitized business at this point. And I want to help you build pray.com, because I truly believed I was called to do it and we'd have a huge impact. Like, I knew that this is what I was supposed to do. It wasn't even a doubt in my mind.
Man, you're blessed to know that in that clear of a form, because that is a big jump. So how long, I mean, that's a big transition. I mean, your life has been like some big jumps. How long did you take to wind down Merrill Lynch?
Yeah. So
rolling on Pray.
Yeah. I still had to survive. I didn't have a lot of money at the time either. And it was in January of the following year. So this was the summer of 2016. So by January, we had raised some capital from Silicon Valley. So in between that time, from June basically to January, we were kind of building the team. We were coming up like, what are we actually going to do? Who are we going to get on this team? Because I've never built an app. He never built an app. So we have to get some technical co-founders. And by the way, he's not, his background is, his family, his mom is Jewish. His dad's Catholic. When he was going to, church back in the day, his grandma was dragging him to church. He didn't really want to be there. So we're going to start pray.com and be like the number one digital destination for faith. And our background in faith isn't as rock solid as it should be.
Well, yeah. When you were even raising funds, like, were you getting a lot of pushback? I mean, from people like thinking that's stupid type of thing?
No.
Okay.
No, actually it was the opposite. It was a real big surprise for us, because Silicon Valley is not faithful. They're just not.
Well, that's why I asked that. I mean, I think if we're here in the Bible Belt where we're at, that may be a little more well received. But if you're trying to raise that up for Silicon Valley, that, to me, I don't know, but that seems like that would be a little bit harder of a sell.
We thought it was going to be too. We were very concerned about it. And, we had brought in 2 other co-founders, which is good. Matt, which is awesome. I mean, his family started a mega church. He built an app before. Like, he was a perfect shoe in for us, and has the personality of just like, tons of excitement. And then the other co-founder, Ryan, our CTO, he actually built the back-end systems of nonprofits before. Now we're a for-profit company, but he's built back-end systems in a big way. And he went to Bible college. He was going to be a pastor. It's like, this is the perfect combination of an engineer pastor. Like, how do you find that? And so we went to Silicon Valley and we're like, oh, well, this is going to be quick. We might as well just expect not to get anything. And as soon as we started telling people, first, the faith market, and people don't like to think of it that way because it sounds wrong to say it, but there is a faith industry and it is an actual business. And $135 billion every single year is the size of the market in just the US. To give you an idea of how big $135 billion is, all the coffee that's sold in the US, all of it is only 40 billion.
Okay, yeah, that puts a little perspective on it.
And like all the wireless carriers that exist in the US is about 300 billion. So you're like in between all the wireless carriers and like coffee, you're in between it. So it is huge.
Yeah.
And it's just very fragmented, right? Like name a brand in faith.
Yeah, you can't.
Like, what would you say? Maybe like the Roman Catholic Church, if you had to like think of a brand name, which, even just saying brand and faith feels uncomfortable. And so it's a very fragmented business. And when you start using big numbers like that, Silicon Valley goes, oh, wow, we had no idea it was that big because nobody even told us. We don't even research stuff like this. And that's how they got excited. They go, oh, you're right. This is a big business. And you know what? The technology in this space, it's one of the last verticals to be revolutionized with technology. If you can remember pre-COVID, the idea that you'd have your sermon online, you were in some, futuristic church, right?
Yeah, I don't know why we're so slow to the party on that stuff. I'm glad you guys are doing something about it.
And good news, there's a lot of people doing something about it.
Yeah.
It's not just us. There's a lot of people. And that's what's exciting is, as terrible as COVID was, and it was terrible. What it did on both sides of the market, the supply and demand side. So the supply side of churches, let's just, for this example, the churches are the supply. They had to learn how to use technology no matter what. Now in the South, it was a little bit different. They're a little bit more open. And so churches probably come back a little bit sooner. I can tell you in California, you weren't going to church.
We immediately switched. We were doing podcasts already, but we immediately switched to YouTube, and we're streaming on YouTube probably 2.5 months after we were supposed to be shut down.
Wow.
Like we would just go to the thing and just do it all by ourselves with like 5 people, and then we would put it up on Sunday. So I think you're right. I mean, we all, and I'm, at the time I was part of a super, super small church. I mean, maybe 125 people. It depends on what you're used to, whether that's small or big. But even for our 125 people, we immediately knew that we needed to figure out a way to do video. Because people were claiming for it, but then we started noticing Brazil and South Africa or however they were YouTube searching, they were finding us.
Unstuck Coaches hates it when movement and progress in a person's life or business is stuck or frozen or slowed or just stopped altogether. Well, we have found a solution. Unstuckcoaches.com. They offer a variety of coaching services to get you or your business moving again. Check out unstuckcoaches.com.
And by the way, that's the average size of a church, the
Correct.
church that you had. So it's actually not small. It's the average size. And your story was a story that we heard over and over and over again. because you really didn't have a choice. And so now churches were being forced to do something that they really didn't care enough about, because they're like, oh, people come to my church no matter what. Don't worry. I don't need to have live streaming or the best technology on the planet, because, they're always going to come to my church. And when that forcing function happened, all churches go, we got to do something, and we have to do it right now. So now the supply side has been educated. What about the demand side? Who is the demand? The demand are consumers. These are the parishioners. These are in the pews. These are us, individuals. That's the demand. Their demand for faith-based content. Those people couldn't go to church either. So now what are they going to do? They got to go to YouTube, right? To find the live stream. They got to go to a website. They got to start downloading apps. Otherwise, how are they going to get their faith content that helps them? And so now they're getting used to technology. You got 90-year-old grandmas, because we got a call one day, that didn't even have the app store signed. They haven't even signed in the app store yet. They never downloaded an app. And they're like, I gotta get the pray.com app. How do I download it? And we're like, do you have an app store account? Nope. Okay, let's walk you through it. And Matt, my co-founder, would actually sit there, bless him, for like a half hour and be like, okay, let's talk about where to find the app
so
store.
good, man.
And so now you have an older generation finally learning to use their phones, and they had no other choice because they couldn't FaceTime their kids or grandkids, right? You had to. And so now we're in a perfect time where people feel better about the technology that they have. And now we have to make sure the content is there. Is it good content? Do people actually want to listen to it? Because just because we can use technology now doesn't mean I want to actually listen to the content or consume the content if it's not great.
Yeah, but so I want to talk a little bit about your role and your hat you wear as, financial officer. And so we don't forget conversations between pray.com and the president, their office, and the Vatican City. And I mean, that's really neat. You got to tell us that. But what are some of the things you've learned from the financial side of it? Talk to the guys in your role in other businesses, guys and gals who are running big companies. It's still a company. What are some key things that you saw that you did or your team did to do or don't do? I mean, talk a little bit about just that role and what you've learned during this, phase.
Let me be clear. I have made a lot of mistakes.
Well, that's what we want to learn from you.
I have made a lot of mistakes. And I did not have corporate finance background. Corporate finance background is completely different than, personal financial background. It's a whole different game. And so many a times I did not know what I was doing and could have had devastating consequences for our company. But fortunately for us, is we had an incredible group of investors that knew I didn't have that experience, and they were helpful. Science is one of our investors. They're actually in Santa Monica. They're one of our original backers, and they continue to invest us in today. And their team was incredible. So specifically Tom Dare, who actually is one of the principals there, really made sure that, he had a lot of patience with me to get me started to like, you can't do that, and don't do that. And you definitely don't want to do that.
Oh, praise God for people like that who'll speak into your life and be patient with you while you're learning it.
Yeah. And I think for us, something I credit towards him, it was like, how are you going to make money? Because you can't keep burning it. And at the time, people were encouraged to burn money as fast as they could. You go raise money and you go, how fast can I spend this money so I can go get more money and spend that even faster? Because it was all about grow at all costs. And grow at all costs, it only works if there's a market that's willing to continue to sustain it. And actually right now, that is a terrible thing to be doing, which is why you see these layoffs happening. People aren't able to raise funds. But, in terms of the mistakes, this is the number one thing in finance: risk management. Risk management. You have to manage the downside. Because if you make a mistake, you could kill the company. Kill it. And what is that mistake? Running out of cash. You cannot run out of cash. or you're done.
So did you have a kind of a regular, super regular rhythm once you really got into it of, I mean, they were looking to you and your team to be like, man, how we doing here? How we doing here? Give me reports. I mean, massive reporting. And
Yep. So credit to our investors again. Mike Jones, Peter Pham, they really understood what we had in our company, and they really gave us the advice that we needed to go, as far as we've gotten today and even farther. And early on, it was, here's how you need to set up this business. Here's how you speak to investors. And by the way, here's things you don't tell them. You don't have to tell them everything about everything, right? What do they actually need to know? And so one of the things we do early on is every single month for our majority investors, we give them a financial update. They need to know what's going on in the business. So that's something important in communication. And we have a call every single month with our major investors so that we tell them, hey, here's what we're working on. Here's, some issues that we're having. Do you guys have any contacts here? Do you have any references there? What would you do in our situation? Here's what we think we're going to do. Do you have any advice as we go down this path? So leaning on really insightful people that you've worked with, who have worked with tons of incredible companies. So they already have tons of experience you don't have, because I only worked with one company and they're like, oh yeah, we've worked with hundreds. Here's what they've done over here. Here's what you have to avoid. So you gotta be humble. You gotta be humble. You don't know everything, and you gotta take advice and just accept the advice and go.
Well, that's what I was thinking when you were talking, Mike, as far as like the way you approached that was beautiful. Like it was not, I mean, if you approach that kind of arrogantly with your investors, I imagine you would have gotten no feedback. Everything would have been questioned. You're always under scrutiny, but y'all approached it just so not, I mean.
Well, just so you know, Josh, I didn't approach it that way at first.
Oh, okay. You had to learn.
So I didn't know. I thought I knew everything, right? I'm coming from Merrill Lynch. What do you mean? I'll figure it out. And I had the wrong approach to start. And we almost ran out of money in our first year. We almost ran out of money, which would be the end of pray.com. We would have never existed. We wouldn't be talking today. So 100% that I had the wrong attitude to start. And I'm glad that I was humbled. And I'm glad that I was taught and people were patient enough to teach me the right way. Because they cared enough to do it. They could have just said, screw this guy. By the way, not every founder makes it to the end, and any investor can go, hey, get rid of that guy. He's a liability. And so, I feel really lucky and fortunate that they actually cared enough and wanted me to succeed, because for sure, 100%, I did some mistakes early on that you just can't do. And they're like, let's give this guy more chances.
Man, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that honesty. That's refreshing. Well, last couple things. Can you talk a little bit about getting the opinion and your conversations with the president's office and getting the opinion to get Congress members to appear on pray.com?
Yeah. So this is wild. So when COVID happened, there was everything shut down and everything had to go virtual, and people were doing live streams of all these events on TV. You'd be like, all of a sudden you'd see like a concert on TV of like all these celebrities. Like, that's kind of cool. Like, we should do stuff like that. We can do live events. Like, we're professional content creators. And so there is a event that takes place every year called the National Day of Prayer. And the National Day of Prayer, it was actually enacted by Congress. They actually had to sign something for it. And every year they recognize it, and the president has to recognize, and actually has to write a formal declaration about the National Day of Prayer. And before COVID, we would go to Washington, D.C. in real life and actually attend the event. We attended the event at the Museum of the Bible. Incredible place, by the way, if you ever get a chance. Just beautiful, beautiful place. And we're like, well, we're going to do our own National Day of Prayer event. And it's going to live stream it, and we're going to get really incredible people on it. And we said, that's what we're going to do. And so I had a friend of ours who's a lobbyist, and we reached out to him and we said, hey, what do you think about getting the president of the United States on our platform? And he's just like, you know how hard that's going to be? Practically.
Oh, yeah. What kind of look did you get?
And I was like, just give it a shot. And we reached out to another investor of ours and we're like, hey, I think like somebody in DC in the White House, can you also check to see like, would the president actually give a message on our platform? Like, would he actually do that? And they're like, I mean, you know how impossible that is. Like, he is busy. This like pandemic that's going on, like for real, it's no joke. Well, all of a sudden we got this contact from somebody at the White House who happens to be in the faith-based division of the White House. I don't know if you know that, but there is actually a division that works with faith-based outlets. And we connected with them. We said, listen, we have this thing called National Prayer. Would the president come on our platform and give a video and pray for this nation? And he's like, there's no way. I'll try, but like, your guys' thing is in 2 weeks. Like, you understand how busy this guy is? He's a leader of the free world. We get an email and he's like, all right, you wouldn't believe this. He's doing it. Like,
oh, no way.
And I was like, well, that's good. But if we get the president, we don't want to make everybody think that, we're not reaching out to both sides of the aisle. And so we had some more connections. We're like, hey, let's get Mike Pence. That way, former vice president, like, at least there's somebody on the other side of the aisle. No one's going to be upset because we had the president on and some people don't like him, and I get it. And some people don't like Mike Pence, and I get it. So if we have both, they can both not like them together or both like them together.
Yeah.
So we're able to get both on the platform, and what an honor to have both on the platform. And mind you, let's not get political here. You're having the president of the United States and the former vice president of the United States on your platform, and just really grateful. And we've had some really other incredible people like Mike Pompeo and Marco Rubio. And, I've got a list of politicians that were excited to be part of it. And we're very grateful that they wanted to pray with us, because that's what it was about.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, these are people that care. And, they felt that we had a great message of wanting to pray for this nation, and they wanted to be part of it. So really, really just blessed that they wanted to do that.
That is really, really neat. Man, thank y'all for doing that. How cool is that?
When we started the company back in 2016, we had wrote some incredible things that we wanted to do, like have the president on the platform was one, and also like go to the Vatican and like hang out at the Vatican. Those things have come true. So we got to write new incredible.
Man, you're gonna have to think way bigger.
You got to think of something insane. I don't know. Maybe you guys have some ideas what we should be doing.
Well, tell me as we wrap it up. Thank you, Mike, for taking time today. Do you have something you would say is your life message or an encouragement to people?
You got to be inspiring. You got to be inspiring. And it doesn't have to be at a grand scale. It could be just for your children. It could be for your wife or your significant other. But how are you going to inspire somebody? Like, you guys have this podcast. What an incredible blessing. What an incredible thing to have. Your voice is going out into the world. How are you inspiring that person that's listening to this right now, or the next call, or the next call? So that's what I learned after joining pray.com and starting pray.com, is that inspiration is what drives people. And that's what I think about when I think about speaking opportunities, or, just people in my personal life. Like, I can inspire my fiance. I can say, hey, I'm really proud of you. Like, here's the things that you've done in your life. And this is an incredible thing. The fact that I recognized it, said it out loud, was inspirational. Or, I've got people working in Ukraine right now. This is a real thing. We have employees in Ukraine. They're in Kiev. One of them said, hey, I think I'm gonna have to go fight. Like, if you don't hear back from me, that's what's happening. And they're literally on a phone call or they're on a Zoom call every day. And I'm like, thank God they're around for one more day. And so when you get to be around stuff like that, it's actually not hard to be inspirational. You just got to think, just like really just take a step back. Like things are really incredible things are happening. So I'm excited for you guys because you get to have a platform that gets to provide inspiration. And that's the number one piece of advice. Like, think about how you can be inspirational to anybody. It doesn't have to be at the stage you guys have, which is much bigger than most people have. But how are you going to inspire somebody?
Man, that's so good. Thank you for what you guys have done and what you do. And I appreciate your honesty through the whole time and how important, and I just see that God's providential things happened and that you stayed, and kind of back to encouragement for parents too. You stayed. That was always an important piece of your life, even through college, even through this, and all your transitions and all your jump, and you saw him everywhere. And now you're just impacting millions of people. Man, and thank you guys. Bless you. You're doing awesome. Thanks for what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And if you're having trouble and you need some help or you need inspiration, download our app, try it out. Like, give it a shot. It's free. Like, take a look at it.
Yeah, and I will say too, the sleep deal has been a big deal for people I know. I've been sending it around to some people. That's been a big piece too. So sleep, podcasts, sermons, videos, and you can go to pray.com online or on the app as well and be a part of that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Really appreciate the time.
You bet, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on this latest edition to the StoryField podcast. We hope that you have been challenged, inspired, and ready to take that next step, whatever that is. If you know someone with an amazing story that needs to be heard, send us an email at info@thestoryfield.com. Have a fantastic day, and we can't wait for you to join us on the next episode of The StoryField.